beginning to a barrage of learning.
From as long ago as I can remember, Dad was talking to me constantly, explaining things and telling me how they worked. At my 4th birthday party, he reduced the conjurer to tears, and he put labels on things to encourage me to read. That fridge on the fridge, and washing machine on the washing machine, grandmother on my gran. Cricketus, cricketus on the hamster, poor thing. The label was much too big for it. I'm sure that was the cause of its heart attack. Though Dad insisted it wasn't, of course. He said it had had a heart murmur when we'd bought it. He said that was why we'd bought it, so that I could hear what a heart murmur sounded like.
On the whole, she was a very good pupil. Very quick to learn. My father wouldn't go anywhere near her. But on her 5th birthday, he suffered a massive stroke which rendered him virtually immobile. Thereafter, he became an invaluable teaching aid. In fact, I like to think it was Dad that first got her interested in medicine.
Looking back, of course, it was an entirely work-oriented childhood.
So, no time for friends?
That's right.
Holidays?
No.
What, no family trips to the seaside?
No. Yes, we went to the seaside once to dissect a fish.
You took the decision, which was much criticized at the time, not to send Caroline to school.
That's right.
Why was that?
Those who can, do. Those who can't, teach. Those who can't teach, teach.
It wasn't then because you wanted to retain total control over your daughter and all her thoughts?
No, of course not. From the very start, I encouraged Caroline to think her own thoughts, and she did.
How do you know she did?
Because whenever she had one, I insisted she told me what it was.
In academic terms, at least, Malcolm Fletton's education of his daughter was a success. At the remarkable age of just 10, Caroline won a scholarship to read medicine at Oxford. Dad, of course, went too.
It was awful. Awful. The child was a complete workaholic. She went through 3 cadavers in the first month. I used to dread that knock on the door at 4 o'clock in the morning. There she'd be standing with that wretched father behind her, holding up some dismembered limb or other and asking me what she could usefully do with it. Well, I'm afraid that one night, after a bottle of particularly pleasant claret, I told her. In Latin, of course.
Leaving aside your undoubted mental abilities, when you went up to Oxford, you were still just a girl of 10, a child, surrounded by people of 18, 19, older. And yet you said at the time that you never thought of them as being older. Why was that?
Have you ever met a medical student?
Right, yes, I take that point. But nevertheless, you must have felt different, isolated to some extent.
At times, yes. I think that was mainly the fault of some of the other students. They used to crowd into seminars to hear me say the words erectile tissue, and then they'd snigger about it for hours afterwards. Mind you, they seemed to snigger whenever anyone said the words erectile tissue, so perhaps I was just being oversensitive about it. I don't know.
Now, it was during your time at Oxford that your mother and father split up, wasn't it?
Yes. Well, they didn't split up exactly. It was more a matter of Dad and myself coming home after term to find that Mum had moved out.
Were you upset?
We were. At the time, yes, very. We'd both brought home a lot of dirty washing for her to do. But we got over it. Mum had always been a bit of a shadowy figure for me anyway. We never spoke to each other much. Dad discouraged it because he said her grammar was very slack.
After Oxford, Caroline accepted a medical research post at Princeton in America. Needless to say, Dad went too.
Do you not think, with the benefit of hindsight, that by the time she reached 18, it was perhaps time to let your daughter go her own way?
She did go her own way. It was just that I went as well.
But eventually, Caroline did manage to break free from her father. In 1981, he slipped a disc and was obliged to lie motionless on a wooden board for 3 weeks. During this time, Caroline met, fell in love with, and married an American called Michael Jones. Michael is a brilliant physicist. Now working at Cambridge, he is very close to proving that 7/10 of the universe is imaginary. Caroline, though, has given up her academic research to work in the food industry. In just 2 years, she has already invented 8 entirely new flavours. Her father, however, disapproves.
He disapproves of everything. He disapproves of me giving up medical research because he hoped that one day I'd discover a cure for baldness. And he disapproves of the way we're bringing up the kids because neither of them can speak Japanese yet. And then, of course, he disapproves of Michael.
Why?
Well, he says it's because Michael's black. But of course it isn't. It's because Michael's cleverer than he is. And he'll never forgive him for that.
Despite the fact that you claim to be thoroughly disappointed with your daughter, you gave the school her name. Now, many people would interpret that as a form of tribute to her.
It's not at all a tribute to her. If it's a tribute to anybody, it's a tribute to myself.
How is that?
Who do you think chose that name? She didn't. She was just a few days old. She wanted to call herself Peter. She's never been any good at making her own decisions. Never.
Whatever their shortcomings, it has to be conceded that both Trevor Matthews and Caroline Jones are spectacularly successful products of Malcolm Fletton's educational methods. But can his approach work for any child?
Any child. Every child.
Are you saying that every child who comes here can expect to achieve the same outstanding results?
No, of course not. We have to be realistic. What our experience over the years has taught us, and what we make very clear to parents when they come to see us, is that all children are capable of attaining a standard of excellence in at least 6 subjects. Beyond that, it's a matter of luck. They won't all be Renaissance men. But then, neither were all Renaissance men.
Arnold Finney marriage. Van Eyck.
Even allowing for this one small proviso, Malcolm Fletton's assertions are clearly attractive to any parents ambitious enough to want to see their child become a spectacular success. But is Malcolm Fletton right? And what are the consequences for the child if he's wrong? This is 11-year-old Alan Wendis.
We wanted to give Alan what we'd never had, didn't we?
That's right.
We wanted him to have the benefit of a first-class education to give him a good start in life.
And because we wanted to have a doctor in the family, so we won't have to argue with the receptionist when we're older.
It's not been easy for us. We've had to make a lot of sacrifices to pay for him being at that school. We've not had an holiday in 10 years, and we've had to make do with things like second-hand furniture, haven't we?
That's right. We're hoping he'll become a back specialist.